discovered that playing piano was a way that I could worship God. That it was my own. Music is a language, a form of communication, like all the arts. And sometimes in college, I would find a practice room and just play for hours, not for performance, but just doodling, making up songs, meddling things, and it was a form of worship. Sometimes I'd be frustrated or working through issues or seeking guidance or discernment, and I wouldn't know how to pray. I could not pray, but I could play piano, and piano would be a form of prayer for me. And I also found that playing piano became a gift that I could share with the community, and I've been playing on worship teams since college, and that's another theme that emerges from this Exodus passage. The arts are intended for the sake of community. They're not just for yourself. They're meant to bless others. Some artists have this idea of art for art's sake, or art that's just for personal self-expression. And that's sometimes the case. One of my friends at IB staff is a visual artist, and his spiritual director told him that some of his artwork is only between him and God. They're his personal prayer language. But other art that he does is intended to bless others, to edify the community. A few Urbanas ago, I think it was Urbana 2000, there was this amazing violinist on the worship team. She was Asian American, she had this totally cool electric violin, and I'd never seen anything like it. She would jam along with the worship team, and she'd do solos sometimes on these Chinese worship songs. It was great stuff. And I realized, if I had seen this kind of violin player when I was a kid growing up, I might not have hated the violin so much. I might have had a vision for how the violin could be used to lead others in worship, to benefit the community. What we see in this Exodus passage is a creative community where artistic gifts are affirmed and cultivated. It's not just Moses as leader setting the tone for the community. The whole community collaborates together in creative work. It's an environment where people work together, each in their own way. Some in visual arts, some in musical arts, some in design, manufacturing, engineering. And we can all think of mentors and peers in our own lives that have helped us along the way. I remember I did the stereotypical Asian American math and science thing as a kid and just got burned out and turned to the humanities instead. Did creative writing and theater, had a journalism advisor that encouraged me to do newspaper. So to make a long story short, in college I found my way to Christian publishing, and now I'm an editor at IDP, and I love working with ideas and words and making books that engage culture and explore theology and help people grow spiritually. So think about how your own communities can call out and affirm each other's gifts. Hey, you're really good at guitar. You should play on worship team sometime. Or that's a great poem. I didn't know you wrote poetry. Can I share that with somebody? Some of us are Moseses, leaders that can be intentional about affirming the Bezalels of the community, giving them opportunities to use their gifts and serve. And others are the other Israelites that collaborate together and encourage each other in their work. And that's another thing I noticed in this Exodus passage. I find it significant that Bezalel is from the tribe of Judah, but Aholiab is from the tribe of Dan. In other words, creative gifts are not restricted to particular tribes, but they're given throughout God's people. It's not just the Levites, the professional religious workers who are called to build the tabernacle. It's skilled workers from every tribe, various tribes. It's not just the artsy people who are creative. Creativity is a discipline for all Christians. And this means that we can't be elitist when it comes to using our creative gifts. If you're a music major, you can't say that only music majors can be on the worship team, or only theater majors can do drama. There's no room for artistic snobbery here. This is why it's significant that Bezalel, in verse 34, Bezalel and Aholiab have the ability to teach others. Those who teach others are not defensive or protective of their own art. They're not threatened when students create their own work. Good teachers want their students to succeed and to surpass them. So Bezalel and Aholiab cultivated a community where they could encourage each other's creativity. So music majors can share their expertise with others who want to be in worship team. People who have training in graphic design can work with volunteers making signs. We can share our gifts and expertise with each other. We can learn from each other and be learners as well as teachers. Artists have to give as well as receive. And together we all pursue these things. Now, some Christians have a very narrow utilitarian view of the arts. Arts merely as a vehicle for evangelistic communication. It's only for gospel presentation. And there's some art that is that way. But there's a whole lot more. Good art is worth pursuing whether or not it's directly religious or evangelistic. Think of what it would look like if a Christian reporter at a secular newspaper tried to put a Bible verse into every article. That's not just ineffective evangelism, it's bad journalism. It's just cheesy. But a good Christian journalist can write stories that expose injustice and corruption, that tell stories of the marginalized, that speak truth to power. And all of that is deeply Christian work to shed light on dark places in society, to be heralds of good news. This is kingdom work. And it's also not easy work. One of the most powerful aspects of news media in particular is the power to set the agenda, to name things, to define discourse, and to wield language. In college, I had a newspaper internship at the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, which is the main newspaper for the Twin Cities metropolitan area. And I met several reporters and staffers who were Christians, and they talked about some of the challenges of being a Christian at a newspaper. And one example they gave was that a Christian reporter could write a story, file a story about pro-life activists. But even if she uses the word pro-life, the copy desk will still change it to anti-abortion, because that's the paper style guide. So it's not pro-choice, it's abortion rights activists. So, not that abortion is the most important issue and the only issue that Christians should be concerned about. We should be concerned about everything. But the bigger picture is that we don't just need Christian reporters. We need Christians who will have lifelong careers to be the wielders of power in all aspects of news media, who can sit on editorial boards and have the power to influence and determine policy and practice. And that leads to one last main point on this Exodus passage. We're also called to be good stewards of our creative gifts. Chapter 36, verse 1 says that Bezalel, Aholiab, and every skilled person to whom the Lord has given skill and ability to construct the sanctuary are to do all the work, just as the Lord has commanded. And there's an imperative here. There's an expectation. The Lord gave us skills and abilities. The Lord commands us to do the work. He expects the gifts to be used for His purposes, for His glory. And that's the responsibility of creative stewardship. We've been given gifts, so we have to use them rightly. Some Christians complain about how bad the culture is, but they don't do anything about it. And we need to get in the game and use our creative gifts to shape society. Andy Crouch of Christianity Today talks about how Christians in different eras have had different approaches to culture. It used to be that Christians just avoided culture. Fundamentalists wouldn't go to movies. But then Christians said that some forms of culture are okay, as long as you do it Christianly. So that could mean that we copy culture. Contemporary Christian music, Christian metal, Christian rap, Christian hip-hop, all the rest, or Billy Graham movies that used the medium of film, but always made sure that there's a Billy Graham crusade and an altar call at the end of the movie. Another route is critiquing culture, where we look at the pros and cons of different cultural products. We count the swear words in movies or TV shows, or we look for redemptive analogies for the gospel. But Andy Crouch says that actually critiquing things doesn't really change much, because it's reactive, it's not proactive, it's not productive, it's not generative. And most of the time, most of us, we just consume culture, just like everybody else. We watch the same movies, download the same music, follow the same TV shows. Andy Crouch says that we cannot change the culture by avoiding it, copying it, critiquing it, or consuming it. The only real way to change the culture is to create culture. We need to change the culture by creating culture. And Soong-Chan Rao spoke here a few months ago, and I think he mentioned the Zondervan skit book controversy. Is that right? If you haven't heard about this, here's the summary. A couple of Christian skit guys published a skit book with Zondervan last fall. And one of the skits had this really racist, stereotypical portrayal of a Chinese takeout delivery guy. And Soong-Chan came across it and started a campaign to pull the book. He went to Zondervan, New Specialties, the skit guys, and they actually dropped distribution of the book, stopped distributing the book. They destroyed all the copies they had